Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be reviewing an audiobook that I read, so I have nothing to show you because I can't film the video and show you the audiobook on my phone, but I really like to listen to audiobooks while I'm taking walks or while I'm working out in the morning because it just kind of makes time go by faster, or it's just really a nice way to read, to listen and get some more information or material while also moving my body a little bit. So I love listening to audiobooks and I've finished one, so I want to review it. The audiobook that I'm going to be reviewing is called Blood Runs Cold, the Yablonski Murders and the Battle for the United Mine Workers of America by Mark A. Bradley. So to start off with, I'm not sure if this book is technically classified as fiction or true crime. I don't really do true crime. I don't really like true crime. I get scared very easily, so it's really not my cup of tea. But this really, as I read it, felt more like a historical event or a retelling of something that happened in history, and during the process, people were murdered. So I felt like the book, first of all, didn't like sensationalize the violence, and at the same time it didn't gloss over the violence because the violence was a really real part of the story, but I felt like the focus was more on like the history and what led up to the events and how the crime was solved, but also like the historical implications of it and how we had gotten to that point and how we moved forward from that point. Also, I feel like a lot of true crime books, maybe I'm wrong on this because I don't read a lot of true crime books, it's like, who did it, mystery. There's never that mystery, like you know who committed the crimes from the very beginning, and it's just unraveling the history and how this, or why this event was important to the United Mine Workers of America Union. So this book focuses on, his name was, I believe, Joseph Albert Yablonski. However, he went by the name like Jackieblonsky, or that was like a nickname that the book sometimes referred to him as. He was a member of United Mine Workers of America. So for people who are not super familiar with the United States or different economic factors in the United States, mining coal is a really big, it is a big occupation in states such as Pennsylvania, West Virginia. Those are the two big ones, but then there's a little bit in some of the states that surround it, and it's definitely declined in popularity, but there's a lot of discussion and controversy, and there's a lot that comes out of coal mining, such as miner safety. I listened to a previous audiobook a couple years ago that talked about the black lung epidemic that a lot of workers get after working in these coal mines, and this book focused on the United Mine Workers of America, which is a mining union that essentially is supposed to fight for miners, workers' rights, better pay, being able to, live and work safely. So that's kind of what this book focuses about. But we quickly learn from getting into this book that the mine has not gone off course. The union has kind of gone off course, and there's a lot of corruption in unions, and if you think about it, kind of makes sense. Anytime where there's going to be a lot of money involved and there's a lot of power involved, it's kind of a temptation for people who want to kind of abuse that power, or people who maybe get into that situation and realize, oh, they don't want to stop earning this much money, or they like having this much control. So the person at the top of the UMWA, which is the acronym for United Mine Workers of America, is Tony Boyle, at least at the beginning of this book. And this book takes place in around 1969 with some discussion of events leading up to 1969 and what happened in the aftermath of the events in 1969. The president, Tony Boyle, they kind of discuss, has some corruption issues. He likes earning the amount of money he has, and he's not willing, or he is willing to resort to violence to get his way and to do things like win elections. So long story short, one of the main people discussed, and is also in the title, Jackieblonsky, decides to run against Tony Boyle. It's a crooked election. It's not going to be fair from the beginning. Yablonski tries to warn, I think like the labor secretary or someone in the labor department in the federal government, that this is not going to be a fair election. There's quite a bit of things that Tony Boyle does to make sure that it's, not fair. And Tony Boyle is a little concerned about the whole situation because he doesn't want to lose his position. He doesn't like that someone who previously was kind of working for him is now working against him. It feels like a betrayal. He doesn't want anything to change. He likes the status quo. And more or less he reaches a decision that Tony Boyle Jackieblonsky needs to disappear. And he asks some people to make that happen. And they make it happen, specifically on, I believe it was New Year's Eve 1969. There are multiple attempts on his life leading up to this, including some very near misses that he almost died, but there was some cross paths or someone was misdirecting his killers. The author goes into discussion about how the killers were recruited, the people who got involved with him, the people who fell out of the plot, the different attempts they tried, the number of times they tried to kill him, or their failed attempts, and then when they actually went through with it, which was this New Year's Eve where they actually, which noted, I believe it was actually after the election. Tony Boyle had already won, but it was a crooked election, and you can call for like recounts or things like that. You can call for an overview of the election if you think it's crooked. Tony Boyle basically wanted this rival out of his way, so he had recruited these people and they were going to make it happen. They were going to make him disappear. Things went a little wrong. Well, murder's always wrong, so let's just start there. They were going to go kill someone, so it wasn't right to begin with, but they also wound up killing his wife and his adult daughter, who was still living at home with them, and then that murder that's kind of anticlimactic. So yes, they are murdered because the UMWA president does not want these people interfering with his plans and the way he's running his union. And the second half of the book is the unraveling of who did it, starting with the murderers, but the prosecution was really, or the lawyer who was looking into it or whatever, was very intentional about not just getting like the hired hands, not the people who actually pulled the trigger, but he kind of knew that this went a little higher than the couple of guys he got from, I think they were from Toledo or something, who he recruited to do these killings. He wanted to go up the chain and find everyone who received orders from everybody else, and he wanted to nail the people who were really behind this organization, not just the people who had done the actual killing. So the second half of the book is the justice and all the time it took and the way they were able to bring justice, and then also what happened within the UMWA after the murders, what happened with his movement, and some of the reforms that went on. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really, really well done. I liked listening to the audiobook, so that's how I listened to it. If you enjoy audiobooks, this might be a good audiobook for you to check out. I really liked the fact that the author focused on the history behind it and didn't sensationalize it into like a true crime sort of thing. I really thought like the balance on like the history was really, really well. I like that the author took the time to explain how he built his story. This occurs right at the very end, so if you're listening to the audiobook, don't just like tune out at the very end when everything is kind of wrapped up, because he talks about how some of the unique difficulties that were presented in this case. So there were many times where people witnessed, or the people who were involved in the case witnessed multiple times, but many times the people who were witnessing in the case were also on trial or had been tried and found guilty themselves for these murders or a part they played in these murders. So their testimony was very unreliable and would change a number of times and would tend to be very self-serving, trying to pin the blame or the idea or something about this murder on someone else to kind of shift the blame around. So we kind of had to use all this evidence to kind of reconstruct what happened, but he did it in a way that felt like it had a lot of narrative flow. So it flowed very smoothly and I felt like it was very well done. And I didn't really realize how difficult of a task that had been until he talked about it at the end of the book, because yeah, he went into discussion about what it took to get the actual narrative out of all the facts. Second, I really like that he discussed the factors also affecting people in the coal field, which is kind of how you know that this is more about a history book than it is just a true crime. It wasn't just on the murder. He spent a lot of time discussing other things that are in the area, so I felt like that was very well done. You felt like you really knew kind of the area and the environment that these murders were taking place in, so that was really interesting and that was well done. I think the author kind of had really clearly done his research on the topic before he had written this book about it. The book overall, nothing is mysterious. Like I said, you know who did the killings right from the very beginning. You kind of know how it's going to end, but the way that the author presented it had, like I said, a lot of narrative flow, and it was very interesting and it was very well done, and I wound up learning quite a bit from this. So I would actually recommend listening to this book paired with another book that is not really about union violence or like union politics, but the book Soul Full of Coal Dust, which actually discusses the black lung epidemic. That was the one I was listening to a couple years ago that discussed black lung amongst coal workers. I thought that was a really, really well done book as well, and I also listened to that as an audiobook, so I'd recommend listening to these two together. I just feel like they give a really good feel of the sense of kind of what was happening or what still is happening in these regions. Very interesting, just a way to get more informed about this topic of the world. And yeah, I recommend both of these. So that was Blood Runs Cold, the Yablonski Murders, and the Battle for the United Mine Workers of America, by Mark Bradley. I'll put his name in, I've already forgotten his name, in the description. I really recommend it. I highly recommend it. If you've read this book or recommend anything similar to this book, I'm interested. I would love to hear about it. Other than that, everyone, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.